Why some bands survive a new singer and others fail. In the world of rock and roll, the lead singer isn't just a musician. They are the face, the ego, and the soul of the brand. When that voice disappears, the band usually disappears with it. Fans are notoriously loyal. They become widows of the original era, refusing to accept that anyone else could ever stand in that sacred spot on stage. We've seen it time and time again. When Peter Gabriel left Genesis, for a huge portion of the fan base, the story simply ended. But today, we are diving into the high-stakes gambles that defied the odds. We're looking at the miracles, the evolutions, and the absolute disasters that happen when a legendary band tries to replace the irreplaceable. From the tragedy that birthed a new version of AC/DC to the corporate reinvention of Van Halen, and the one catastrophic mistake that proved even the biggest icons aren't invincible. Chapter 1. The AC/DC Miracle. February 19th, 1980. The rock world stopped. Bon Scott, the man who gave AC/DC its dangerous, street poet edge, was found dead in a car in London. For Angus and Malcolm Young, this wasn't just a business crisis. They had lost a brother. At that moment, the band was effectively dead. They actually considered packing it all in, believing the unique vibe of AC/DC had been buried with Bon. But a strange story began to circulate. Years earlier, Bon himself had seen a singer in a band called Geordie. He told Angus, "This guy sounds like Little Richard on fire." That guy was Brian Johnson. When Brian walked into the audition, he didn't try to act like a rock star. He was a working-class guy from Newcastle who was so nervous he almost didn't enter the room. The reason this became a miracle is because the Young brothers made a tactical move of pure genius. They didn't try to find a Bon Scott clone. They didn't look for someone to mimic the dirty blues style of the 70s. Instead, they took their grief and turned it into the heaviest, most monolithic wall of sound they had ever created. They wrote Back in Black. They gave Brian Johnson a platform to scream with a power that Bon never had. It worked because it wasn't a replacement. It was an evolution into a stadium-sized machine. Back in Black became the second best-selling album of all time because it didn't ask fans to forget the past. It invited them to a celebration of the future. Chapter 2. The Van Halen Reinvention. Now, contrast that with the situation in 1985. This wasn't a tragedy. It was a civil war. Van Halen was the biggest band on the planet, but behind the scenes, the foundation was cracking. David Lee Roth was the ultimate showman, a circus ringmaster in spandex. But Eddie Van Halen was a classically trained musical genius who was getting bored. He wanted to use synthesizers. He wanted to write complex melodies and mid-tempo power ballads. Roth famously hated it, telling Eddie that nobody wants to hear Van Halen play the damn piano. When Roth left, the widows were everywhere. People assumed the party was over. But then came Sammy Hagar, the Red Rocker. This is where the case study gets fascinating. Sammy brought a professional vocal range and a stable ego that Roth lacked. Suddenly, Eddie was free. He could write songs like Dreams or Why Can't This Be Love? This was a total rebrand. Van Halen moved from being a dangerous Sunset Strip party band to a global arena rock machine. They traded the raw, unpredictable energy of the early 80s for the polished, multi-platinum success of the corporate rock era. It worked because they captured a new, massive audience. People who liked the melodies of the 80s but still wanted Eddie's godlike guitar work at the center. They survived because they gave the world a version of Van Halen that was easier to digest. And for a decade, they were untouchable. Chapter 3. The Disaster, Gary Cherone. But as the saying goes, the third time is never the charm. By 1996, the magic was gone. Sammy Hagar was out, and after a disastrous 5-minute reunion with David Lee Roth at the MTV Awards, the band made a choice that still haunts fans today. Gary Cherone from the band Extreme. On paper, Gary was a great singer. He had the range, he had the energy, but on record, it was a catastrophe. The 1998 album Van Halen 3 is the ultimate proof that you can't just plug a good singer into a legendary brand and expect lightning to strike. The chemistry was artificial. Eddie was producing the record himself. The songs were overcomplicated, and Gary's theatrical, almost Broadway-style performance felt completely alien to the Van Halen DNA. The fans, who had already been through one massive transition, finally reached their breaking point. The tour was a struggle, the album sales plummeted, and for the first time in history, the Van Halen brand felt cheap. It was a painful lesson. Chemistry isn't something you can manufacture in a boardroom. If the soul of the band doesn't match the voice, the audience will smell it instantly. The lead singer curse is a thin line between evolution and extinction. AC/DC proves that if you find a right fit, you can live forever. Van Halen proved you can pull off a miracle once, but you rarely get a second chance at reinvention. So what do you think? Is there a replacement singer out there that you actually prefer over the original? Or are you a widow of the 70s who refuses to listen to anything recorded after a frontman left? I want to see the Team Roth versus Team Hagar battle in the comments. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the tension that builds rock legends, hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to check out my video on why Angus Young is the real boss of AC/DC. It explains exactly why the chemistry we talk about today is so rare. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the comments.